How would you like to improve your health and keep your family safe? You're listening to the Healthy Home Hacks podcast, where we firmly believe enjoying optimal health shouldn't be a luxury. Healthy Home Authorities and husband and wife team Ron and Lisa will help you create a home environment that will level up your health. It's time to hear from the experts. Listen in on honest conversations and gain the best tips and advice. If you're ready to dive in and improve your well-being and increase your energy, you're in the right place. All right, here are your hosts, Bow Biologists, authors, media darlings, vicarious vegans, and avocado aficionados, Ron and Lisa Barris.
Let's make life easier with one paint and endless possibilities. It's Beyond Paint, a true all-in-one paint that includes primer, bonder, and sealer for cabinets, countertops, furniture, and more. Beyond Paint allows the dreamers to do more, easier, and better than ever before. Just pick your color, clean and degrease, no stripping, sanding, or priming needed. Stir, paint, and watch your vision quickly come to life with Beyond Paint. Paint beyond your imagination with the ability to bond to any surface, made for everyone, from the DIYer to the seasoned professional. It's beyond just paint. It's saving time, money, and effort, so we can dream big with even bigger results. Beyond Paint, an all-in-one solution to transform any space.
Hi guys, quick question today. What's really keeping you from hacking into happiness? Today's guest has worked with hundreds of patients and has found that the key to living your best life lies in identifying your unconscious programming, driven by your personality type, and overcoming its limitations.
In her new book, Your Vitality Personality, Decode the Real You and Hack into Happiness, Candice asserts that decoding your secret inner programming and releasing self-sabotage allows you to discover the most potent and mighty aspects of yourself. It allows you to consciously see what has previously been hidden within your unconscious: power, love, genius. She further explains that there are two opposing aspects to someone's personality type: the real you and your primal persona. The latter causes people to live in a permanent state of survival mode, causing them to make reactive choices. With Your Vitality Personality, Candice helps people break free of their primal persona and access their vitality personality, the most enlightened version of their personality type.
Yes, and Lisa and I took her online quiz and the results were insightful. And we'll share the link at the end of the show so you can take the free quiz yourself to discover your own vitality personality. It's really cool, guys. It shows you how to determine which of the 9 personality types you fall into.
Our guest, Candice Thomas, and author of Your Vitality Personality, is an award-winning holistic health professional, Enneagram researcher, and international speaker. She holds a bachelor's degree in molecular and cellular biology, a master's degree in acupuncture, and certifications as an Enneagram accredited professional and quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner. Woo, that's a mouthful. Candice has devoted her life to pursuing higher understanding of consciousness and the source of vitality.
Welcome to the show, Candice. Yes.
Woohoo!
Thank you for that great introduction. I appreciate that.
Oh, you are a very interesting person. I will say your bio is definitely like none we've ever read before. So this is
it is a mouthful too. You're right.
I can't even say some of the words.
I know everything I'm into is hard to say for some reason.
Okay, we'll get clear of the air on that. Well, welcome to the show, Candice. We are thrilled to have you with us today. And I want to dive right in because this is a big, juicy topic. So your new book is called Your Vitality Personality, and in it, you describe 9 different personality types. Why is it important for people to identify our personality type?
So your personality type is way more than like a fun, curious quiz to take. Your personality type includes all of your unconscious programming, all of your ego stuff, basically what we would call your shadow side that is installed. It's in there but you don't realize it. And so that is the secret saboteur that's kind of holding you back from what you say you want, but then you don't have the behaviors that get you there. That's the sabotage that's built into the personality type. And then the flip side of that is actually there's incredible genius built into your personality type. You have special strengths and talents that all the other types do not have. And that when you get to engage with that aspect, that's like your happiest life. Like you're your most fulfilled when you get to really live as your favorite self. Okay. So you need to learn about kind of the shadow side so that you can manage it and access that really exciting side.
Right. So your exciting side is called, what is that called again?
That's your vitality personality.
Okay. And then your primal persona is your shadow. Now, if you took that at different periods in your life, would this test come up completely different depending what was going on?
Yeah, it would come up differently. I try to really remind you when you're taking the quiz that if you have changed over time, answer for how you've kind of always been. Answer for yourself when you were like 20 something. That's sort of when you're your most owned by your ego. You know,
okay. Some people still are. Some people are late into their
100%. But, you know, most of us do start to realize over time, like, I keep doing it this way and it's not working out for me. Maybe I should change this up, right? So we want to find out that initial core personality type. So sometimes you're answering for how you used to be.
Right. Okay.
So it's funny, behind the scenes, we're actually sharing with you what our personality types were.
Yes. And it's a robust questionnaire. I was actually so surprised. Sometimes you take these online quizzes and it's like 4 questions. I mean, yours is what, 50 something?
Yeah, it's like 60 something questions. And that's actually half the length that it used to be. You know, I need it to be long enough to type you accurately, but not so long that you're so bored you give up taking it, right? You know, so we found a happy medium.
So there's no one bad type. Whatever number you are, you've got this positive and negative, and you're just trying to focus on the more positive and break that negativity.
That's right. Yeah. There's no winning type.
Oh, there's no winning
Although there are certain types who are really competitive and want to think that their type's the best.
Right? Which one's that?
Which types are those? I'll tell mine. Mine was the architect, right? Type 1. I was like, wow, I really like parts of this and other parts I don't. Right. So
yeah. I think I'm a 7, but I got to double check. I'm pretty sure I'm a 7. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about it. So walk us through the 2 different halves again. One is the primal persona and one is the vitality personality. How do we balance that? I mean, are we usually a 50-50 split in that? Are we trying to be 100% of our higher self? What's the process?
Well, that's such a great question. I would say that basically this is survival programming that generally gets triggered in your childhood. So the more stressful your childhood was, probably the darker your dark side is showing up for you. You are more and more in survival mode. That's how you learned to cope as a child, right? So occasionally I meet people who didn't really have much trauma as a child, and they are kind of living as their high side without even having to work on it. It's really fascinating, you know, that occasionally you'll meet, really it's the younger, I find the younger generation are kind of a higher consciousness than before.
Okay.
I do. I find that the young people have more openness than most of us do.
Is that because everybody wins and everyone hugs each other at the end of the game? Why is that?
Yeah. Everyone's a winner. Everyone gets a trophy. How can you be sad?
I mean, you know, it's pretty rare to be the one who got the really easy household to grow up in, right? Most of us came up in households where our parents didn't know this stuff either, and neither did their parents. And it's just
you pass on
generations of,
you pass on things if you're not working on them. Okay, so how can listeners figure out which type they fit into?
So they should go and take the free quiz that will help you get on track. I have a shorter version that I do when I'm face to face with somebody, but it's hard to...
Oh, that is so sneaky, Candice. So you're analyzing us. And I'm the architect and that's the judger, but you said you weren't. So you have a little bit of architect in you. Is that what's going on?
Yes. Well, I'm a type 7.
Oh, like
all
me.
The personality types have arrows, or what they're called, that connect you to certain other types. And that means that you also share traits with this other type. So a type 7 has an arrow to type 1, where the 7, when they're under duress, first they start exhibiting the more stressed out aspects of the primal persona, and they start taking on the primal persona of the arrow. And then there's a second arrow where that's your growth arrow, where if you're in a great place in your life and you're kind of expanding, you tend to take on more of the attributes of this other type. So 1s and 7s are the growth direction for a 1. They become more playful as they're elevating their consciousness. And for the 7, who can be that undisciplined type, they become actually more controlled, more organizing. They get things together as their life is getting
so
more
they
and more
balance
messy.
each other, the 1s and 7s, and that's us, right? You're a 1.
Right. That's very interesting.
We're yin
Wow.
yang.
They can, I mean, they should balance each other. Sometimes
Okay.
we're just mad at the other person for not being like us, right?
Yes, right. Yep,
You know?
we all do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which other personality types kind of balance each other? What other numbers would?
Okay, so all the types would have a couple types that are balancing them. So the type 2, their growth arrow is to type 7. Their breakdown arrow is to type 4, which is called the diva. So in that case, the 1 goes from being real structured and disciplined, but under duress, they start to feel kind of sorry for themselves and getting more emotional and inflammatory. It's really not their normal nature. And so when you start seeing a real structured, logical type 1 starting to act more emotional and kind of throwing a pity party and all that kind of stuff, they're in their 4, right?
They're in their
so
4.
So a type 2, let's see.
That does sound like you.
Well, no, that wasn't me. That was a different one, right?
That's a 1, right? The 1 and the 4.
That's, yeah. If you're a type 1, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
It goes to -4. Yeah. So we just call it positive and negative. It's not that tidy, but for conversation purposes.
It's funny when listeners, when you get the results, first you read the good part and you're like, oh, yeah, that's me. That's me.
I'm so amazing. Yes.
I'm so amazing. And then you get down to the shadow part and you're like, what?
I know. It's super not fun to read it.
I don't do that.
It is a little bit of a punch to the gut. But kind of the point is that all of that is stuff you didn't realize about yourself, but it's going on, right? And so that's why it's a saboteur, is that you have a dark side and you have no idea it's there. But the people who are in relationship with you are well aware that it's there, right?
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
It's 63 questions, right?
Yeah.
It's 63 questions. Yeah. So, I mean, it's detailed. So it's giving you, I guess, very accurate results. So you can't really fight it. So let's say someone takes the quiz, right? And once someone identifies a personality type, what next? Like, how do they transition out of unconscious programming that holds them back?
That's a great question. It's sort of what do I do with this information? So in the book, you're going to read more about your type. And of course, we start out with the hard stuff because that's all the problem areas, right? And so just reading about your type, probably 50% of that, you're going to clean up right away. As soon as you see it, you're like, okay, I don't like that. I'm not doing that anymore. And it's not really that big of a deal to reckon with it. And then the other 50%, even if you're trying your hardest to fix this stuff, it's probably stuff you'll be keeping an eye on for the rest of your life. So really the key, the hinge between being in your primal persona and being in your vitality personality is basically your level of self-love and your degree of happiness with your life. The way I teach it is that high side of your personality type is basically your higher self shining through. That's how your higher self wanted to be in the world. They picked this personality type because this is how you really want to serve in the world. And so your higher self is permanently in a state of love and joy and peace. So whenever you get yourself into that state, you can just trust that you're aligned. You're making higher choices. And we've all just experienced that, right? When you're under duress, you're definitely reaching for your comfort food, right? When you're happy and fulfilled, you can actually say, I'm good without it. I can go, I'm good. I mean, you just sort of naturally make a better choice when you are in a higher state of mind.
Right.
So I teach techniques that I call the real you methods to help you get out of the mind, help you calm down that nervous system so that you can move yourself into your heart and that higher mind, which connects you to the higher self.
Right.
So there are techniques I love to teach people that most people have never heard of before that really make a difference in sort of bringing you back over and over again to who you really want to be.
Right. That was one of my next questions, because in your book, you do talk about journaling, no matter what your personality type is. Can you tell us about some of the other exercises you suggest?
So I have 3 methods that are for everybody. And then I highlight some other techniques by type, depending on special needs for that type. So my general techniques, one I call the sway, and it literally is rocking side to side, left to right.
Let's all do it.
And, but really making an S in the spine, right? All the way down. And you start and letting the jaw relax, letting the neck, like you can feel all that tension in there, right? And so we're dropping our energy, our attention into the heart while we're doing that. Like I'm not thinking thoughts. I'm sort of picturing. But so just closing your eyes and swaying like this, you're not thinking about anything and your whole nervous system is settling down. Any pain and tension is releasing. These are all the things that are blocking us from our highest and best self, right? When we've got a freaking out, nervous, I've been stressed and upset, right? You're trying to relax, but you can't relax. Or your mind is chatter, 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 and you can't get it to shut up, like all of that. It just sort of brings you to center just by doing that for a minute or two.
It really does. I can feel it. Yeah. I mean, I've never heard of that technique before too. I know there's been times like being on camera or before podcasts, if you're just feeling anxiety for whatever reason, I used to clench my fists and that releases energy. With this is very, very zen. I feel calm from doing the zigzag S routine. Thank you.
Isn't it? It's just remarkably soothing. Yeah, the sway.
It's almost like going back to our childlike self, right? Being rocked, right?
Yeah,
it has that feeling.
I think so. Soothing. I think that is part of why it's effective it is that sort of surrender. Everything's okay. I'm in good hands. I don't need to worry about anything.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Were there any other techniques besides
There are 2 more. So one is called the charged energy clearing. So when we have charged emotions, right? When we're having a big reaction to something, we tend to try to just stamp it down, right? We don't really tend to say, well, what is this feeling right now? And so when we ignore our feelings that are charged, they don't just disappear. They pack into our energy field, which becomes our physical health. So actually our body, our aches and pains and illnesses in the different areas are specifically there and not somewhere else because of the emotions that you've been feeling over and over again.
Oh, the pains. So the pain is always related to an emotion. Okay.
Yeah. So like low back pain is generally, I feel really burdened, right? I have too much pressure on me. A lot of people have like a stitch in the side on the left, and that's sort of like, I'm stuck in a bad situation and there's no way out for me. So we have these repetitive thoughts which turn into feelings that we don't know what to do with. And so they wedge somewhere in the body. So you need a technique to not do that and to just fully process the feelings so that they're not continuing to come up for you. So that is basically just naming the feeling. So you got to slow down enough to admit that this is how I'm feeling, right? So maybe it's like, I feel so resentful that I'm stuck in the caregiver role, right? Like I am just so over showing up for people who don't show up for me, right? So the technique is to see that's what you're going through. And you say to yourself, I love and accept the part of me who feels stuck, I love and accept the part of me who's feeling resentful right now. I love and accept the part of me who believes there's no chance for me. It pulls you out of being in your story to actually watching yourself having a story. And when you realize it's just for this moment that I'm having this feeling, like it's really not the story of my life. I don't need to get this charged up about this, right?
Right.
But it's always pulling it into the heart. The mind is where the ego is chattering at us all day. So
Right.
what we think is just that inner critic or whatever, that's the ego. We really don't want to let that have control. So we're
Right.
developing a practice of pulling our energy down into the chest instead. I like to say, if you picture like a hologram of an orb inside your mind, like that's where all the chatter is, you descend it down into the heart. And now you have a sense of, I'm holding an orb in my chest. It's just enough energy or attention there that now my mind is not chattering, right? And so that's a quick way to stop that cycle of mental chatter. You get into the heart, and then while sort of consciously seated in the chest, then you're saying, I love and accept the part of me who feels stuck. I love and accept the part of me who feels taken advantage of. It's just admitting to yourself, that's how I feel, and letting yourself feel it. And that's all that takes to actually release it. And here we could spend a lifetime, right, trying not to feel something that's actually quite easy to clear.
Okay. So you don't have to go, I release it or anything like that. You just have to.
No, I picture like pulling my world into my chest. Like I picture dismantling, like I pull in streaks of light until I've pulled this whole story inside. Now I got black all around me, right? And to just pull it all the way in, because it sort of stops that story from continuing. You're kind of over
people
it.
Get into it. So when they're in a spiral, then they'll,
That's right.
like you dropped a glass and it broke. Oh, now everything's bad, right? Now it's like, the carpet's dirty, or I should have
Right.
fed the
You're
pet,
right.
right? And so you spiral. Then
For
you see
sure.
everything negative, right?
Right.
It becomes like bigger than just that one thing.
Right. So once you start to realize, oh, look at me, here I am in my story again. I've got a whole little pity party, I'm trying for myself. That's when you just take a minute to stop and say, okay, I love and accept the part of me who thinks all of life is annoying right now. Like
I love and accept. Yeah, the accepting,
Yeah.
right? That's powerful. So like a real granular question, because you and I are sevens. So if
Should I leave the room for a second?
just leave, yeah, you can.
No, you'll probably learn something
Yes, you'll
important
learn,
about
you'll
your
learn.
wife.
Good. And I'm not going to judge you two as a one. That's right.
If we didn't have the techniques of swaying or journaling or any of that, what would the bad behavior be that we would do? And something goes wrong. What's the typical behavior for a 7? Like, what would we do?
So it's escapism, right? Type 7s, as soon as they are feeling unhappy about something, they want out. They want immediate relief. So there's a lot of dropping what you should be doing and getting into what you prefer to be doing, right? And so it's basically self-medicating. There are a lot of type 7s who are addicts, but a lot of it is not. It doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. It could be shopping. It could be working out. It could be
binge watching
sex. Binge watching TV. Some of the behaviors are obvious and some are not, but it's basically I have my go-to behaviors that I use as a way of making myself feel better, instead of being present with myself about how I'm actually feeling. Am I in a situation that's not good for me, or am I just acting out? Because type 7s tend to be starters, not finishers. We like the excitement of ideas. We like the beginnings of things when it all sounds fun and exciting. But as soon as it starts to get boring or tedious, or you're trying to get it to the finish line, that's where a lot of 7s give up. And so it's really unfortunate that 7s tend to not always see their stuff all the way through. And that's a huge form of self-sabotage, right?
Now, would a higher version of type 7 see things to the end? And that's why they have so many great ideas, but you're your best self when you took it to the end. And that's wow.
Right.
So that's the extraordinary part, but the challenge is to get to the end.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So like she said, if you didn't have that past trauma, you might not be battling with that as much as someone else, right?
Correct. Right. Because that escapism got learned in childhood. Usually for a type 7, it's a mom who won't meet your needs. It's some kind of neglect by mom. Or that's how we're perceiving. Well, that's what I'm saying. Some have that trigger and some do not. And my mom was a very present mom, but she was a working mom, right? So we were the first generation of latchkey kids, right?
Yes.
Right. And so you're just feeling that lack of nurturing. So whereas a type 1 would sit down and do their homework, the type 7 says, where's the popsicles? I'm watching some cartoons.
I'm going swimming.
Right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So we learn early, I need some fun to make me feel better. And we just never
to fill that gap. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm,
wow, that's deep. Did you make up this whole system?
No. So that's the Enneagram, that word that's hard to say. Ennea, Ennea means 9 and gram means picture. So it's picture of 9 personality types. So the Enneagram is an established personality typing system, but this sort of dual picture of it, the shadow side and the high side, is my work, and the methods and the identification of the survival patterns and the sabotage patterns, all of that is new related to my research. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting.
So Candice, tell us the 9 different types of the primal persona.
Just the primal persona?
Or the vitality persona. So the type 1.
Let's
I'm type
do both.
1 is the architect, right? Okay.
Right. So the high side is the architect. The shadow side, or the primal persona of the type 1, is called the judge. So type 1s have a genius for creating order and structure. They have a really intuitive sense of flow. But when they drop down into the ego side of it, it turns more into categorizing everything. Good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, right?
Right.
So it's labeling everything to make it tidy. But of course, a lot of the gray area won't get acknowledged that way, right? So type 2, the vitality personality, is called the altruist. So this is a real giving type, very loving, very warm and generous. When they're in their vitality personality, they are also honoring their own boundaries. They are also making sure that they are stable and secure before they're putting themselves out there to take care of other people. But when they're in that primal persona, they become the victim. And type 2s are not, oh, poor me types of people. They're not a victim because they think of themselves that way. I've named them the victim because of how they always put themselves last, and they always insist on taking care of everyone else, but not themselves. And generally that turns into being a giver who's aligned with a taker. And poor me, I'm always in a bad situation because I hook up with people who don't treat me well.
Right.
So the type 3, the primal persona, is called the luminary. These are all of our leaders. These are politicians. These are actors. These are CEOs. They're big achievers. However, when they get into the primal persona, the name is the pretender, because it's like they're leading with wanting to be famous instead of leading with, here's who I am and I have something important to offer.
Right.
It's sort of like I skip who I am and I just adopt a persona that looks successful. I start dressing like my hero. I start running with the kind of people I want to be seen with. And it's sort of building a persona from the outside in. So when they get into the luminary, they have enough self-trust to authentically be who they are, even if that might not be the most popular image or the most conventional image. They're more willing to achieve with projects they actually really care about, right? Instead of, oh, they're just a lot of money making.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Musicians, actors, right. For sure.
So the type 4, the vitality personality, is called the creative. These are right brain people in a left brain world. They're highly intuitive. They're very imaginative. They're very visual, really inventive. When they get into the primal persona side, which is called the diva, it's more about, I need to be seen as special. How come nobody acknowledges my unusual abilities? Because mostly they've been told by their parents coming up, why are you such a problem? Why don't you fit in? How come you're not good at math? How come you don't do your homework on time? Or children really don't fit into our conventional education system, and it creates frustration for the parents, right? Like, why can't you just be an easy kid? Why do you have to be high maintenance? Yeah. And so the 4, very early on, is being told, you're a problem. There's something wrong with you. You're weird. And they really develop a complex about it. And now they're kind of constantly seeking approval and validation. And they get upset when they're not being seen how they want to be seen. So when they move into the creative, they've left all of that needing external validation behind, and they're able to just fully enjoy being who they are and their own unique perspective.
Right. And when they're unbalanced, it's all ego and it's not being their true self. And so they're diminishing their creativity and their quirkiness, right? And not being unique because they feel like they need to be in that box. Yeah.
Well, and when you think about what being a creative person is, it's the opposite of trying to be like anybody else, right? You want to be totally unique. And yet, when you put yourself out there in a unique way, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like it, doesn't think it's pretty, doesn't whatever. And you're like crushed and devastated, right? Because you want everybody to love what. But when you really love yourself and you really love your own imagination, you're just creating for your own joy. And it has nothing to do with what anybody else thinks, right? So it's releasing yourself from that desire, that care about what other people think.
Yeah.
The type 5, the vitality.
Ron asked a long question.
He did. You don't have to go into all of them if you don't want to.
No, it's good. It's good.
This is very interesting.
Because I'm sure people listening are like already identifying with which one they are just by hearing.
Yeah, you're identifying with who you are. This sounds like your spouse. This sounds like your kids. This sounds like your boss. Like you're immediately realizing, oh, all the world is filled with personality types,
right?
You.
Right.
Yeah. Do you want me to keep going?
Let's go. Let's hear, because people are like, I did not hear mine yet. So please tell me, Candice, what am I?
So the type 5, the vitality personality is called the sage. These are our deep thinkers, very deep capacity for concentration and focus, introverts, but asking big, deep questions. These are our inventors and our visionaries, right? They're the ones who are finding all this information and then applying it to something useful. When they get into the primal persona, that's called the miser. And the type 5 in miser mode is extremely private, like intensely introverted, and really doesn't want you to know anything about them. And they become more of an observer of life rather than a participant of life.
Okay.
So they're called the miser because they don't want to share. They don't want to share themselves. They don't want to share their stuff. They don't want to share their knowledge and expertise. It's really closed down, right? So we want the type 5 to expand and connect and participate, because that's where you really get wisdom, is from doing, right? You could read about it in a book, but that's not the same thing as getting in there and trying it yourself, right? So the type 6, the vitality personality, is called the guardian. This is an integrity-oriented type. The type 6s care very much about community and society and making sure everybody is being fair, is being honest, things are functioning properly. They're
not politicians. They are not politicians typically. I'm joking.
I mean, there are 6s in politics for sure. And then the primal persona is called the alarmist. So instead of making things more stable, which is what the guardian would do, they're actually freaking out at all potential change, right? Wherever some new concept is coming along, or a foreign person, or a strange something, they're sure it's about to be bad. They really resist any news, feels like it's rocking the boat. And so they tend to get big flashes of upset out of nowhere. It takes them by surprise, takes other people by surprise. So that move into the guardian has a lot to do with managing anxiety, with being present instead of going to this imaginary storytelling, right? It's keeping yourself stable so that you can face the challenge instead of spaz about the challenge, right? Type 7, we've covered a lot already. The vitality personality is called the uplifter. So they are the ones who elevate other people's vibe, right? So there are a lot in the entertainment industry, like all our really funny, silly people, are type 7s. I think Jim Carrey.
I was just going to say
Robin Williams. Yeah. I don't know about the daughter, but I think Goldie Hawn is the 7, right? Smiley, laughing, playful. But when they're in that primal persona, the hedonist, instead of being uplifting, they're being escapist, right? So it's not like I'm elevating you with love and good humor. I'm drunk and being really silly. It's not the same thing, you know?
Okay. They have the hedonist thing too? Isn't
Type
the
7 is what
Oh,
we're talking about. It's
oh,
the
you're doing
hedonist.
7. I thought you skipped to
Yeah.
8. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Gotcha.
no. So that was 7. So type 8, the vitality personality, is the leader. This is our most forceful, powerful type. They have big energy. They bring about big change. They're really about helping empower other people. So we love Martin Luther King as a great example of a type 8 who launched a whole movement of self-empowerment, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the primal persona version of that is called the bully, where they've decided, step aside, I'm in charge, we're doing it my way, you be quiet. And they just get super controlling and dominating about what they think is the way to do it. So there are a lot of issues with anger and control
Okay.
related to that primal
Yeah.
persona.
The ego. Yeah.
Good old ego. It's
Good old
always in the
ego.
way, right? And then the type 9, the vitality personality, is called the healer. And that's not because they're all MDs. It's because they have a healing presence. They are very calm. They're very kind. They're very generous. They forgive you your bad mood. They don't make you apologize for what you said yesterday. They let you be who you are. They give you a lot of grace. And that's incredibly healing for everybody else to be around, right?
Yeah,
People who
right.
just let me be who I am makes me feel safe and I can lower my guard, right?
Right.
So the primal persona version of that is called the submissive, where they're trying to create a peaceful environment by never asserting their opinion about anything,
Oh,
right? And
right.
so they're trying to just go along with what other people want. But the problem is sometimes not good stuff is going down, right? And
Yeah.
somebody needs to speak out,
Right.
and the 9 will not speak out. And so they're letting a lot of maybe negative stuff happen because they don't know how to speak up and say, that's not right. I don't think we should do that. They'll
Right.
kind of look the other way and
Yeah.
sweep stuff under the rug. So it's important that the type 9 finds their voice and speaks out, because in order to be the healer, it needs to be a stable, safe environment, right?
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Gosh, you can see that. You can see all the people as you're explaining it. It's like, oh, I'm thinking of that person and that person and that person. Yeah.
But you won't know until you take the free quiz. Right.
Right.
So Candice, in your research with patients, do you see trends among personality types when it comes to happiness and well-being?
I do. As we discussed, it has a lot to do with whether you're in your primal persona or your vitality personality, right? So anybody in the vitality personality is probably pretty happy. But in terms of trends, we can divide those types up into thirds. So there's the assertive types. That's types 3, 7, and 8. They have big energy and they have go for it energy. So they're more inclined to set their life up the way they like it. They're more inclined to say, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. I would like to do it this way, right? So there's probably a higher degree of satisfaction. Of course, they're still sabotaging themselves in other ways, but
Right.
in general, I think the assertive group would tell you they generally feel pretty happy. Then there's the withdrawn types. That's the types 4, 5, and 9. They feel the opposite about their energy. They feel like they don't have enough energy to go around. They're introverts, they're quiet people. And so they find like taking on drama is too much. They'd just rather give you what you want because they don't feel like dealing with it, right? So when you start letting other people make your choices for you, they're choosing for themselves, not for you in general, right? So you are going to be less happy if you're not speaking up for what you want and you're letting somebody else decide, right? So there's can be unhappiness in that way. But I will say that it's the third group, the dutiful group, types 1, 2, and 6, who really care about their responsibilities, who really believe in meeting expectations, doing what you should be doing. Those are the unhappiest people, in my opinion.
Oh, wow.
Oh, Ron. Oh,
But
no.
you said,
Yeah.
if you're in your vitality personality, you're saved, right? So,
Well,
that's the key is to
correct.
get-
But I'm
right?
just going to say,
Because they're like
I mean,
by the book, they'll do what's right, even at the expense of their happiness. Is that why?
yes. And because there's an underlying belief that it's selfish for me to put my needs first.
Oh.
That's bad and wrong for me to pick what I want to do. I should be self-sacrificing. I should take care of other people. I should put my needs last. Like that's the belief. And so those are all the choices. They're always putting themselves last. So that's going to make you pretty unhappy pretty quick. And yes, it's true. Everybody, when they get into the vitality personality side, are much happier with their life. I would say in a clinical setting, I'm mostly meeting unhappy people, right?
Right. Exactly.
They're in my office because things aren't going well.
They're not like, I'm happy and great. And I just wanted to come chat with you today. Well, it's interesting. We also went down the human design path and did those tests. And Ron is a generator and I'm a man gen. That's a different show, but generators are like a hard no and a hard yes. And that matches what you're saying with the type 1, right?
Right. They're very concrete.
Yeah. So
I feel like I'm being talked about. This is ridiculous.
Hey, Candice, let's have a session. Do they overlap? Do you think human design? Do you think there's overlap with what you do? Or is that?
I think they do. I think they overlap with astrology. It's basically, these are archetypes, right? And there are many systems that are trying to explain the archetypes that we see, right?
Yeah.
So we may give them different names, but the descriptions seem always to be that same guy, right?
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So what about someone's personality type determining their love relationships? Does that impact it?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's favorite question is, which is the best type for me, right? And I would say that that's not a thing. No, there is not an ideal match. There's always going to be ways in which you overlap and ways in which you are different. And in either direction, that could be good or bad. Overlapping could be great, right? That we agree, or overlapping could be we're toxic in the exact same way, right? Right? And being opposite could mean I'm always in friction with you. We never agree on anything. Or it could be, wow, you really balance me out. I do it this way and you do it that way. And together we're really good together. Right. So it's actually more about your level of self-awareness and basically your emotional intelligence, your ability to take responsibility for your feelings, to take responsibility for your reality, that you're creating it. It's not happening to me, it's coming from me. So the more you're willing to take accountability for yourself, the more harmonious your relationships with other people will be, regardless of what type they are.
For sure.
Well, Candice, why might it be helpful for parents to know their own personality types? So do they need to know their children's type as well? And do you see or tend to see a variety of personality types within a family?
Oh, wow. That's a cool question. Okay, so first with the parents should 100% know their personality type so that you can see what your strengths are and what your problem areas are, because your children are experiencing all of that from you, right? But also it really shows you, I mean, when you haven't heard of personality types, you just assume the way you're doing it or the way you think of it is how everybody thinks about it. Like that's just normal. That's just what people do, right? So once you realize actually there's 9 different types with 9 totally different worldviews and belief systems, you soften your position, right? You realize, okay, I need to be more adaptable than this because other people are not going to get it, right? So it helps you be a better parent to know who you are. And now young people, they're not going to be able to type themselves, right? They don't have self-awareness yet to the degree where they could take the quiz. So you're guessing. You could end up being wrong, but I feel you're better off trying to guess than just not, right? Because you can start to see that, well, this child wants to be parented this way, but this child needs something totally different and I don't get it. So now you're starting to understand what your child needs from you,
right? Rather
than trying to force them to adapt to how you do it.
Right.
You're more willing to adapt yourself because you're the adult, right?
Yeah.
You are more able to adapt yourself to meet the needs of the child.
Right. That's really interesting. So much parents have to do. Here's another thing, guys. So in your research, Candice, did you discover anything about health and well-being across the different personality types?
Yeah, that was the most exciting thing that has come out of the research is that I really started to see, wow, I'm treating all the type 1s for neck and jaw and shoulder tension, but I'm
Is that
treating
true?
all the type 2s for sciatica. Oh, yeah. So you really start to see that different personality types end up with similar kinds of ailments.
Ron's a clencher. Ron's a grinder.
Yeah, I used to really clench my teeth.
And grind.
Yes. Yeah.
I was a grinder. Yeah.
Type 1s, I have found, hold their breath all the time. They care so much about that to-do list, about doing it all right and getting it all done. And they're kind of marching through the day, right? And you're holding your breath. Like, first I have to pick up the kids, and then I need to drop off the dry cleaning, and then I need to get to my workout. And then and you're like, so
oh my gosh,
closing
that's so
down,
true.
right? So closing down that diaphragm and not descending the breath down into the belly is creating an enormous amount of pressure in the chest, the neck, and the shoulders. And then they're also gritting because they feel frustration all day that everybody else is not behaving properly, right? And so they're feeling frustrated. So there's just an enormous amount of tension in the neck and shoulders.
That is interesting.
But basically, breathing down into the belly fixes a lot of
we go on.
Well, how can we fix type 7? I really want to know.
I want to say one thing. Ron and I go on hikes a lot, and we'll bring our hand weights and things. And I will say to Ron, breathe. You're not breathing. Like, I will literally, how often do I say that, Ron? All the time. Like, I don't hear you breathing. You're not breathing, right?
Is part of your personality, is the nagging part, or how does that work? It's the teacher.
He's in trouble. He's in trouble.
You're right.
Yeah, right. I don't think there's a type that doesn't nag. Well, that's not true. I wonder if 5s nag, those deep introverts. They just shut down against you and don't tell you why they're mad at you.
Oh, yeah, that's bad too. Yeah. Okay, what is the 7? Where do we hold the health issue?
Yeah, so 7s, I do see a lot of addiction to uppers, right? To things that make themselves feel better. So this could be coffee, right? No, but I mean, just things that stimulate. I see a lot of 7s drinking energy drinks and drinking coffee, and they can have a major sugar habit that I'm self-medicating all day with my special treats, right? And so
because I'm seeking that nurturing.
Yeah, but also I actually do find that there is a cancer trend in the type 7s. And so cancer is generally, for type 1s also, I'm going to say, cancer is repressed anger. Right. So that's basically what cancer is. And then the location of where you're experiencing it is a further clue of what kind of anger you're holding. So 7s will get breast cancer because breast cancer is anger about having not been nurtured as a child. Right.
God.
So
not us, Candice, not us.
Right.
Well, I love and accept the part of me who feels anger about not having been nurtured, right?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how type 1 also got the same thing as type 7, but also had another problem.
Well,
type 1 has lots of problems. That's because you called me nagger.
You're not breathing. You are prone to it. So good.
Well, I mean, I hate to admit this to my fellow type 7s, but I do find that 7s have less health elements than most others.
Oh,
because
that's good. That's good.
They are committed to their own happiness. Out of all 9 types, the type 7 is the only type that puts their own happiness as their highest priority.
Ooh.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Right? You would think, like, doesn't everybody want to be happy? What are you talking about?
No.
But actually, all the other types have a principle that they value higher than their happiness.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so they will sacrifice the happiness in favor of something else. So the fact that the type 7 pretty much is always looking to enjoy their life.
Yeah. Is a good thing.
You end up with better health. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you have spiritual doormats, right? You have people that want to be good. And then we talked about some of the, whichever number that was, but we'll let people walk over you, right? We'll do that to a fault, giving kindness to a fault, right? And not having that self-love enough to say no to something. Right.
Yeah. So the type 2 is always putting themselves in a win-lose, right? Where you get to win and I get to lose. But a type 7 is looking for a win-win, right?
Okay, that's good.
Are there some types that are just so close that like over your life, you just change types? And I'm not asking because I want to switch out of type 1.
You want to be a 7 now. You want to come over to the 7 side.
Can that even happen? I mean, are there some?
Not that you switch, it's that you expand, you grow. Once you learn the trick to managing your feelings, to getting out of that chatter and getting into the heart, you've sort of unlocked yourself. And now you're going to start accessing the high side of yourself, the high side of your arrows, which, right, those two other sides. There's something called your wing, which is the type on either side of your number. So as a type 7, you might have a type 6 wing or a type 8 wing.
Oh, everybody's wings are different?
As a type 1, it's like if you put the numbers in a circle, what are the number on either side of you? So type 1, your wings would be a type 2 or a type 9.
Right.
So you would want to read about those types and see, oh, do I share traits with some of those?
Right.
So it's like once you figure out how to stabilize yourself, how to make yourself happy, then you start really letting go of the limiting aspects of your type. And you can much
you don't want to change your type. You want to embrace it. You want to embrace the good parts, right?
It's like when you're in your primal persona, you're just living in a little sliver of life, right? It's like, I think the world works like this, and it's a tight little, right? There's not much flexibility. But once you start learning about this system, learning about you become more accepting, you become more forgiving, you find out how to make yourself happier. You start learning from other people and saying, oh, I didn't realize there were other ways to look at this. Like maybe I should do it like they're doing it, or I could see the value of that perspective. And you just open up enormously.
Wow. Really good stuff.
So I'm curious, Candice, how difficult is it for people to get past their unconscious programming once they access their vitality personality? For example, is their work done once they access their vitality personality?
Yeah. It's never done. We kind of go back and forth all day, right?
I was going to say, are we constantly going?
Start out, it's a great day, it's blue sky, I'm feeling good. And then I go to work and my boss tells me I'm an idiot. And now I'm in a less great mood, right? And now I'm mad at the traffic. And now I'm annoyed by the cashier. And so you're up and down. But what I would say is that your home baseline is elevating over time, right?
Okay.
What used to be your average mood is higher than it used to be. And you become more resilient. You are quicker at pulling yourself back to center when you see you're sort of getting off track. So it gets easier and easier to be in your vitality personality, but there's always something trying to knock you back into your
There's always going to
persona,
be,
right? Yeah.
Right. We've all had that where we're like, nothing's going to get me down. And then boom, something does. And you're like,
boom, I'm flat. Yeah.
Like I thought it was so strong. Okay. This is amazing.
Are you a meditator, Candice? Do you meditate?
I'm a meditator, but type 7s are famously terrible meditators.
Yeah.
I want to give all my type 7s a spanking, because I couldn't possibly hold still for 5 minutes. Talking about,
I'm totally like that. I do meditate, but exactly. It's a struggle.
Yeah, it is a struggle. But I would say for someone like that who feels a lot of resistance, most of us do feel resistance to meditating because our ego doesn't want us. That's the escape hatch, basically, right?
Yeah.
Learning to quiet that mind, learning to center yourself. That's shutting down the ego. The ego does not want to be shut down. So it's going to put up a lot of, oh, no, you don't want to meditate. That would be so boring. Oh, no, you couldn't possibly. So we kind of all know we should meditate, but don't want to. But that's where that sway exercise comes in, because that's easy to do. I don't have to feel like I have to be so still and quiet everything. I can just start doing this and it starts to quiet me down anyway. Right.
Okay.
So it's sort of a back door to meditating.
Nice.
Then you have the orb. So you're basically getting everything out of your mind, right? So you're trying to have no thought, right? So, and that was going for the heart space. Have you found that the architect is the best meditator? I'm joking.
He is a good meditator.
I needed something positive. Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay. Well, I want to tell you something positive because I was married to a type 1 for 10 years. Okay. So same as you guys, a type 7 woman married to the type 1 man. I want to tell you what he did for me. Okay. The way he created order and structure for me, for the family, like he's the one who created the spreadsheet that went on the fridge that was everybody's chores on which day. And, but the budget.
It sounds so much fun, Candice.
But it's so helpful. Like you can't know how important that is. For a type 7, really struggles to be effective, right? They're always sidetracking themselves because they get distracted by the latest shiny thing, right? And the type 1 is so good at creating systems that help and that help you flow, and they're so practical. And 7s have this kind of whirling dervish energy. And it's hard for us to root ourselves, but a type 1 is calm, cool, and collected, right? They're just going to quietly be like, well, if you just did it this way, you wouldn't have any of that. And it's like, how did you not think about what?
Right.
So type 1s really help stabilize the chaos that is the type 7.
Ron creates spreadsheets for me. It's true. I'm like, can you make me this spreadsheet? And because I use like so spot on. I'm like, oh, I have 20 million things in my head, and I need a spreadsheet to help me like see it and stay on path. Exactly. That's like us to a T, right, Ron?
That is true. That was pretty accurate.
Ron, I know you think it doesn't sound that sexy to be the one who makes the spreadsheet, right? But just admit to yourself, if everybody actually took your advice and came to you and said, Ron, that rocked my world, what you just did, you would love it, right?
Right. Isn't that what it's all about saying, yes, the type 1 is right? Isn't that the right thing to do?
100%.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I even say in the book, it's like, okay, let's be honest. They are usually right.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Candice, you're going to create create an ego over here.
My husband created the budget and he shows me here's our beautiful budget. And I took one look at it and I was like, where's the fun column? And he was like, what? I was like, after me being a good girl and doing all these chores and paying all these bills, like, where's my dinner and a movie? Like, I need my reward. And he was like, oh, right, fun. I forgot about that.
Yep, totally. I know. I'm the planner in the relationship. I plan all the fun stuff. I do. I plan all that, right, Ron? All the social, all the travel, all of it. Yeah. And that's fine. It actually works for us because I like doing it. And
then I get my spreadsheet together and see if it works.
Ryan gets a spreadsheet and watch out. Okay, enough about us. Candice, this was so amazing. Thank you so much for being with us today. And friends, you can learn more about Candice and her wonderful work at yourvitalitypersonality.com. And head there right now to take her free quiz. You're going to be blown away when you get the results.
Yes. And guys, please be sure to review our show and subscribe so we can continue to bring you excellent guests like Candice. It was awesome today. Thanks, Candice. Head to www.healthyhomehacks.com for all the links and show notes, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Candice.
Bye.
This episode of the Healthy Home Hacks podcast has ended, but be sure to subscribe for more healthy living strategies and tactics to help you create the healthy home you've always dreamed of. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. See you on the next episode.